So we're following the breaking news tonight. The new forecast for Hurricane Dorian. The storm could make landfall in the Carolinas later this week after devastating the Bahamas and killing at least 7 people. But the question in a lot of people's minds in the face of all of this is the climate crisis. Is it making storms like Dorian worse? Joining me now, hurricane chaser Mike Tice and also Jody Freeman. Jody Freeman is a former counselor for energy and climate change in the Obama White House. Thank you so much. I appreciate both of you joining us. Professor Freeman, I'm going to start with you. Let me read this. This is from the New York Times. They cite studies published in the journal Nature, and it says, recent research suggests that climate change has made stalled Atlantic storms more common since the mid-20th century, and that they are more dangerous because they stay in one place for a longer period of time, potentially concentrating their destruction. Is the climate crisis making these storms worse?
Yeah, I think what we know is climate change is making hurricanes more destructive, and we can expect stronger storms in a warmer world. The government did a study about this. They put out a national climate assessment last year, and they actually looked at the 2017 hurricane season, and they looked at all the storms, and they concluded 2 things. One is that climate change is making hurricanes more intense, and the second thing is that the storms are reaching that intensity faster. And what that means, practically speaking, is that you're getting higher wind speeds, more rainfall, and you're having kind of this force that's being fed by warmer seas, gain speed and gain intensity, and push water onto land with much more destructive power.
Mm-hmm. I see you shaking your head there, Mike. I've got to ask you because you chase storms for a very long time, and obviously there have always been hurricanes, but when you see the devastation that left the Bahamas, what is the link you see between, warming oceans, temperatures, and the strength of these hurricanes?
Right. Well, this is what I do know, Don. Hurricanes are fueled by warm ocean. That is a fact. Another fact is this planet is warming. I'm not going to get into whether humans do it or it's a natural cycle. It's just the fact is the planet is warming. We'll leave that up to the scientists. But with the warming water, of course, it's going to result in stronger hurricanes because that fuel is more potent now. So I think we're seeing these stronger hurricanes because of the rising temperatures of the oceans. But don't forget, it's not like all of a sudden we have hurricanes like crazy. The last 2 years we have, but don't forget, we had a 10-year drought of no hurricanes in the United States. So I do believe there's somewhat of a cycle of active periods, and then you have a lull. But just the fact that the oceans are warming, they've got to be getting stronger, right? That is the energy for a hurricane.
Well, you're calling what we saw in the Bahamas, Mike, downright scary. You don't scare easily.
No. I'm basically speechless. I don't have a lot of words to explain what I'm feeling when I see these images come out, other than it reminds me of Katrina. This was kind of like the Katrina for the Bahamas, except they had 185 mile-per-hour winds on top of 20-foot storm surge, which Katrina did not have. So this is a disaster that's worse than the Bahamas. People are really going to need our help. It's going to be a long time to recover in those northern islands.
Professor Freeman, you are an expert on the climate crisis and environmental regulation. From a policy perspective, what can we do?
Yeah, here's the thing. We see these devastating storms happen over and over again. We also see other disasters like wildfires, heat waves happen with greater intensity, all influenced by climate change, and it's a sign of things to come. It's true we can't say that hurricanes happen with more frequency because of climate change, but they're certainly more powerful and stronger. So the kinds of policies we need to put in place are going to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions that are the root cause of a warming planet. But you also have to add to that putting defenses in place because we're going to have to adapt one way or the other. So we're talking about things like seawalls. We're also talking about putting housing and infrastructure up in more protected places, up on pylons or caissons. We're also talking, though, eventually about a kind of managed retreat from the coastline. We have a lot of infrastructure and a lot of population increasingly along the coast, and this is a recipe for disaster in a warming world. It's interesting, you guys are going to have the town hall tomorrow, and it'll be a real opportunity to hear what at least the Democratic side has to say about their policies on climate change, and a real opportunity to hear what they want to do.
Well, good. What is the most important thing you want to hear from these Democratic candidates? By the way, it's going to be 10 presidential hopefuls tomorrow, back-to-back town halls. We're going to be discussing climate change. But what is the most important thing that you want to hear from these candidates?
Well, so they all actually generally agree on the direction we have to go. We have to transition to a clean energy economy. They all agree with that. They all want to put a lot of investment into research and development, into clean tech. They want to protect people who are going to suffer from that transition. So they share a lot of policies, but what I would want to know from them is, which among them has put down on paper, has already thought about what they would do on day 1, day 10, the first 100 days as the executive branch leader, as the president of the country? What can they do with executive action? What are the pieces of the puzzle that they can put in place? Because we would want to know, how much are they going to rely on Congress for their ambitious plans, and how much can they do with the pen of the president by themselves? If they're relying on Congress for more spending, to pass a new law, to pass a carbon tax, for example, that's going to be a heavy lift unless they own both houses of the Congress. So I'd want to know, what can you do as president? How are you going to get from here to the ambitious plan that you've put out as part of your agenda?
I've got to go, Dr. Freeman. Thank you so much for your time. Mike Tice, thank you. You be safe out there. I appreciate both of you. And be sure to tune in tomorrow night for CNN's unprecedented Democratic presidential town hall event on climate crisis. 10 candidates take to the stage to address the critical issue tomorrow night, starting at 5 Eastern, right here on CNN. We'll be right back.